Hey, good evening, guys. Hope you can hear me okay. Please give me a shout out if you can hear me. It's been a while, and I am not prepared. But we're live, 5.5 hours later than we should be. Thank you, Mark. So good evening. See quite a lot of people here tonight, so thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking out on the wrong time. Hope I didn't cause too many issues. I was travelling back today, so I thought I might be later. It turns out I am a lot later. But yeah, good to be back. I've been missing Warhammer this week, actually. And I know I haven't replied to everybody's comments yet from last week's videos. I've been trying to reply to some of them on my phone, but the internet where I was shady as. So if I haven't replied to your comments yet on the video from Friday, the HQ list, I will for sure reply to them this week. And I think the other thing to say is I'm hoping to get a game against AdMech tomorrow night. I'm like 90% sure we're going to have AdMech on the channel tomorrow night. I think I have the list. I think he said he needs to proxy 1 or 2 units. But I mean, that's fine. So I guess if you wanted to check out a game against AdMech, I haven't played AdMech, I don't think, a single time in 9th edition. They just got their codex recently. I believe their codex actually had them a little bit. The camera. The camera has frozen, correct? Joe, I've been using this camera all week at a wedding, and it was fine. But apparently last time I was on stream, this camera froze up as well. I do not know what's going on with it. Yeah, it's just dead. So it worked for all of like 2 minutes and then decided to die. Okay. Maybe it's the capture card. I will have to try. I'll try in a different USB slot something next time. Okay, yeah, I tried turning it off and on again. Yeah, this is a different camera. It's not quite as good, but it's fine. It's fine. Okay, so yeah, tonight we've got 4 army lists as normal. And they are submitted by Benjamin, Zacharias, Michael Cronda, and Shane McCarron. So these are the 4 lists we're going to be jumping into. And and then at the end of the stream, if anyone wants to see the potential AdMech list for tomorrow, just let me know in chat, and I will show that as well. Hope you enjoyed the video on the HQ stuff on Friday. I guess we had a couple of sound issues. We will continue to work on those and see if we can get them ironed out as well. So, Highland Phoenix, Maverick, Dr. Aklushka, Cyable, Carey, Wildling, Mr. Pog, Adrian, Mark F, iSpeed. Oh, Michael's in the chat. Cool. Nice to see you, Michael. We're going to go over your list in a minute. Oscar, and maybe Mike. A couple other people. Yeah, a lot of people here tonight. So, if you enjoyed tonight's stream, I really appreciate it. If you can, hit the like button. Likes really help the channel out. And if you are new here and you want to see Blood Angels content every week, then please consider subscribing. So, yeah, let's get straight into the first list then. I think we'll start with Benjamin. His was the oldest in terms of like when it was actually submitted. So, hey Camille, how you doing? So yeah, updated list for review, and it is a patrol detachment to start with, and then I'm guessing it'll be like another patrol. All right, so it's a double patrol list. We've seen quite a lot of double patrol vanguard. I kind of like them, but let's see where we get. So we're starting with 12 CP. We got to spend a couple to make it a double patrol, so we're on about 10. And the list actually has 7 overall. Alright, so you spent 3 on other things. Let's start then. We start with the Librarian Dreadnought, who has Quickening, Shield of Sanguinius, Wings of Sanguinius. He is upgraded as a Chief Librarian, and he has a Meltagun. So, definitely a beat stick character here then, I guess. Shield potentially to shield himself, Wings of Sanguinius to get around, Quickening to get those additional attacks, and the Meltagun. And I guess all this category stuff is kind of irrelevant. It's just the verbose stuff that comes in from Battle Scribe if you set it up that way. We then have the Sanguinary Priest, who has the Chief Apothecary upgrade, I guess, which is actually 35 points now, right? The Jump Pack and the Selfless Healer and Armor Indomitus, and is the Warlord. And I think we talked about this a little bit last week. So he's, this is a slightly... I feel like this list maybe just missed out the fact that this is 135 points. Should be 155 points. Maybe Battlescribe wasn't updated when he made this list. Regardless, we talked last week about how I think Armor Indomitus is kind of a waste on the Priest, right? You never want to get the Priest in combat. You should have him hanging out with enough of a unit so you could never get shot. I mean, maybe in a meta where there's snipers, you get a little bit of value out of Armor Indomitus, but for the most part, I mean, when I was running the Priest, I was running him without... armor, and I didn't think that the armor was necessary. I feel like the priest should be probably in an obscuring position or next to something that protects him from Lookout Sir, and the priest is a lot to risk in combat, right? 155 points, and the fact that he's only got 4 wounds and no invulnerable save. And yeah, I guess Armor Indomitus gives him an invulnerable save for a single phase. But, it feels like a lot to risk if you're going to put him in combat. I would probably only put him in... I'd probably only take Armor Indomitus. I don't know. I just feel like it's a wasted relic. Because he doesn't do it... he's got 6 attacks in combat, but he's literally just got a chainsword. So... unless you're going to go in and kill a single Marine on his own, or maybe let's say the enemy had a squad of intercessors or something, and there's 2 of them left, and you charge them with the priest. Maybe the priest can kill them both. Do you know what? Let me just pull up the priest's stats just so I'm 100% on this. But priest isn't that strong in combat, right? So he gets 3 attacks, yeah. So he gets 6 attacks with his chainsword, and he's hitting on 2s. So if you ran into, let's say, let's just do some very quick math. A priest with 6 attacks, hitting on 2s. I guess you'd be strength 4. So you'd wound, let's say you were fighting against a couple of intercessors or something. So you'd wound them on 3s because of the red thirst. And then it's a chainsword, so it's -1. I assume it could be -2 because we didn't get the Assault Doctrine up. So they'd save on 5s or something. So your priest's your priest is able to kill a single intercessor in a round of combat, and that's in turn 3 when he has the Doctrines up and he does additional attacks. So before turn 3, he's literally not even killing a single intercessor. There's a lot. So I don't see a situation where the priest needs to be in combat ever, right? He just doesn't have enough damage output to he's not bringing enough to the table to put him into combat. And if he's not putting him into combat, then why do you need Armor Indomitus? The only way maybe you can do a little bit of damage with a priest is to give him the Teeth of Terra, which would give him the 8 attacks at I guess it would be strength 5 with the 2 damage. So I mean, at that point, maybe you could put the priest in combat, but again, I don't know if it feels like it's a worthwhile relic, because he's really only ever going to go into combat with something that's very, very easy to kill. Even with the Teeth of Terra, you still have to play him like that, because the enemy, one of the main things the enemy will do will target and kill your priest. So I have a question mark around this. Okay, but I mean, that's just my opinion. If anyone in the chat wants to say how they feel about putting a relic on the priest, they can let me know. We then have troops, and we have 1 squad of infiltrators, just standard as they come, 120 points. There's no options there. We then have a Blade Guard veteran squad, 140 points, and that'll just be 4 Blade Guard veterans with a default heavy bolt pistol, the shield, and the Mastercrafted Power Sword. When using company veterans, Bodyguard prevents all ranged attacks against characters, even if they're the closest model, correct? If they're within 3 inches, Jeff, yes, it prevents all ranged attacks, even if they're closest model. You are correct, yes. And another neat trick you can do with that, Jeff, is that your bodyguards can be in an obscuring position, and your character does not need to be... So your character could be, let's say, standing on an objective. You could have 2 bodyguards obscured behind some terrain near the objective. As long as they're within 3 inches of the character, you can prevent the character from being shot, correct? We then have a Redemptor Dreadnought, Frag Storms, Icarus Rocket Pods, Macroplasma, and the Onslaught Cannon. Pretty solid choices on the Redemptor Dreadnought. I feel like the Frag Storm and the Stormbolt are interchangeable based on the situation, but Redemptor Dreadnought with these options is good. And then we have the Whirlwind to provide basically the fight last mechanic and the suppression fire if we need it. The second detachment, I guess, has 1 relic of the chapter, and we start with the captain on the bike with Gift of Foresight. He's a chapter master. He has an Infernal Pistol. He has the Thunder Hammer, and that's it. So sorry, who's the warlord? Did I miss that? Alright, the priest is the warlord. Okay. And then the Primaris chaplain on a bike with the Litany of Faith and the Mantra of Strength. The Litany of Faith is going to become more important, I believe, with the ability to prevent against mortal wounds in a bubble around him. Litany of Faith does core and character, which is pretty cool. Soul Ward in the Blood Angels Warlord trait is slightly better in that it just does all Blood Angels, so you don't need to care about the core or character keyword, but Litany of Faith is good. Benediction of Fury to basically be able to get this guy up to 4 damage weapon with 6s doing mortal wounds. Here we have Rites of War as well, and he's been upgraded to the Master of Sanctity. This pick confuses me, or it confuses the wrong word. I think that the big advantage with Master of Sanctity is to take that Wise Orator trait, right? It makes your litany casts like so much more reliable, right? So by not taking the Wise Orator and taking Rites of War, I guess Rites of War is interesting and it can provide OBSEC, but like having those litanies be reliable can be really, really important. I feel like if you're taking Litany of Faith, which is quite a defensive litany, you kind of want it to be reliable. You don't only want it to be going off 66% of the time, which is what it goes off if you don't have the Wise Orator, right? So basically 2/3 of the game you get that litany off. Probably like 3 out of 5 turns, whereas with Wise Orator, it's going to be much more likely to be 4 out of 5 turns, or even 5 out of 5. You know, if you have to make 5 2+ rolls, I feel like there's a good chance you do that. There's not a good chance you make 5 3+ rolls, right? So a little bit of a question mark from me around that. If you really wanted Rites of War in this list, you probably could still do that by using the Angel's Exemplar Warlord trait and just moving your Warlord to a different character. We then have a squad of Incursors for 105 points. This is an 8-man Sangre Guard. Yeah, this is on the low points cost, so this would actually have gone up a little bit. So this would be like 256 now, because each of these guys would be 32. Swords and Axes all the way. And then we've got the Vanguard Veterans Lightning Claws, and I think these guys have also gone up. I think the Storm Shields went up 1 point per model, and the Jump Packs went up 1 point per model as well. So it's like 2, 4, 6, 8. So I think the Jump Pack's going up to 24. So couple little changes here, I guess. Mostly Lightning Claws, Storm Shields, an Infernal Pistol, and a Power Fist. I feel like the Power Fist isn't really going to bring that much value for the 8 points that you actually spend on it. You're probably better just having another Lightning Claw. And a Thunder Hammer. Thunder Hammers, I think Thunder Hammers are a lot more valuable than Power Fists, just because if you come up against a -1 damage army, Thunder Hammers only lose 1/3 of their damage, whereas the Power Fist loses half. So relatively speaking, although the Thunder Hammer is more expensive, I think it's quite a bit more valuable than a Power Fist. Like, I don't run any Power Fists in my list anymore. I did before the prevalence of like the -1 damage in Death Guard. I kind of liked Power Fists just because they were an okay place of 8 points, but I think with the constant duty, and I mean Duty Eternal and Dreadnoughts as well, right? Like all Dreadnoughts in 9th now have Duty Eternal, whereas before it used to cost 1 CP to give a Dreadnought Duty Eternal for a single battle round, and I thought it was strong back then, right? So, yeah, Power Fists to me they just aren't in a great place. Like, I'd say that like, Chain Fists, something that can do like D3 could actually be like okay, but I just think flat 2 damage is not what it used to be, right? D3 now is arguably better than flat 2, I feel like, because I guess if you roll a 1 against -1 damage, you lose nothing, and if you roll a 3, then you still do 2. So I feel like D3 is better now than flat 2. But yeah, Power Fists are just in a strange place for me. And then Eradicators with Melter Rifles, and it's just 5 Eradicators in a squad with the regular Melter Rifles. Probably the easiest way to make this list work with the new points cost, and that these guys went up 16 points, these guys went up about 12 points, and the Priest went up 20 points. Probably the easiest way to make this list work is going to be to drop a single Eradicator and make it a 4-man squad of Eradicator. The Power Fists look cool with the wings on them, though. I mean, yeah, they do. They're just not in a great place right now. If I was going to make Terminators right now, like Terminators with guns and stuff, I would 100% go for Chain Fists. I think they're the same cost as the Power Fists, but like I just think they're arguably going to be a lot better, right? Because if you roll, if the average roll in D6 is like 3.5, right? So most of the time you're going to get 2 damage. But if you roll bad and get the 1 against -1 damage, you lose nothing, like I said. And if you roll 3, it's just the Chain Fists are just going to be in a much better space right now. So I guess not many people take Terminators with guns, and most of them do the close combat variant. But if you were going to do Terminators, I think Chain Fists is the way to go, over Power Fists for sure. So yeah, let me think about this list for a minute then. It's a double patrol. We've got Librarian Dreadnought, we've got Sanguinary Priest, we've got the Captain and the Chaplain. There's quite a heavy investment in characters. You've got 305 points there, plus like 100, I guess that's 325. So 630 points in characters. I personally feel like that's too much. I ran a couple of lists that had like over 500 points in characters. Maybe like 530, 540, and I feel like it's probably over 500 is just too much. This also opens up like an Assassinate pick for the enemy because there's 13 victory points available because you have 4 characters and a Warlord, right? So it's borderline too many characters. Characters are more force multipliers now than they are just killing machines. I guess the Librarian Dreadnought here can be a killing machine, but I'd argue like he's not. Shield of Sanguinius is not really reliable to help him survive. Like a 5+ invulnerable save doesn't feel that strong nowadays. Or I guess against like Weight of Fire, 5+ invulnerable save isn't going to keep him alive, and he is only just 8 wounds, and he is going to be jumping forward like pretty aggressively. So I actually think I really like Iron Resolve in the Librarian Dreadnought. I think it increases his survivability quite a bit, giving him that extra wound and a 6+ Feel No Pain roll. Okay. Blade Guard Veterans maybe to hold the middle. Redemptor Dreadnought to advance and shoot. Whirlwind to turn off the fight last. A decent amount of bolt guns on the Sanguinary Guard. Eradicators. 5-man squad of Eradicators is actually kind of a little bit questionable because I feel like with a 5-man squad, you're probably going to want to end up splitting fire. If you do end up splitting fire, you're going to lose some of your damage. So I guess you've got that to consider as well. Like I feel like with Eradicators, probably 3 and 3 is going to actually be a lot more valuable than like a single 5, but I guess if you've just got the points for it, that's all you can do. I think melter rifles are the right choice, though. The heavy melter rifles are really difficult to play around just because the Eradicators do have that very small movement. Can you give the Librarian Dread a relic with Artisan of War? No, you can't. It specifically says, like, you cannot. The Master... Do you know what? I've got the book right here. It specifically says that those... special issue war gear can be given to a Blood Angels character, named character, and vehicle models cannot be given any of the following relics. So no, you can't do that. It says it at the top of page 53 in the Blood Angels Codex right here. Here, named characters and vehicles cannot be given any of these following relics. Okay. Right. Obsec wise, we got two troop choices. So I think we're looking at like a 7. We have Rights of War though, so potentially we're looking at like an 8 to start with. Anti-horde firepower in this list is very, very sparse. We got like, I guess, 16 shots coming out from the Sanguinary Guard potentially. We have the 1 Redemptor, and I mean, I'd almost. Hey Harold, thank you for subscribing. I'd almost not count infiltrators and incursors shooting as like, you know, it's just their shooting is AP 0 for most of the game, and you know, it's kind of rough. Like quite often I find as well that these guys are camped out and objectives potentially obscured, so you don't really want to rely on their firepower. I mean, I guess you've got 2 bikers that can do a little bit with like their bolt guns, but not much. So I'd say that like your anti-horde in this list is pretty slim. You will end up probably, if you fought a horde-based army, you're going to need to kill some of the hordes with your Lightning Claw Vanguard vets, which is fine. Or some of your other troop choices, probably, I guess, your Incursors or your Whirlwind. But I still think it feels kind of light to me, so I'd probably go with like a 7 there. Anti-monster and infantry, and when I do this, I like to know how many 3 damage weapons we have. So we've got like 2 Infernal Pistols and a Thunderhammer here, so that gives us 3. I guess the Eradicators have 3 damage or above weapons, so that gives us 5. So we've got like 8. We do have the Chaplain on the bike with his 3 damage weapon, and the Captain on the bike who's rocking 2. So I guess we've got like 11. And then Librarian Dreadnought brings a couple more, a Meltagun and a Fist and a Staff. So yeah, we've got about 14 3 damage weapons. This list was submitted before the points changes, Highland Phoenix, so I actually think he needs to drop an Eradicator to make this work, because the Priest went up 20 points, the Sanguinary Guard went up 16 points, and I think the Vanguard Vets went up at least, like, well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think they went up 12 as well. So I think his list has gone up like 48 points, so this Eradicator's squad actually needs to be a 4, and then he's got 3 points to play with. What did he have left at the end? He was on 2,000 exactly, so I guess I'm not exactly sure. I did say drop this Power Fist for Lightning Claw probably, so I'd probably do that, and then you've got 8 points to find somewhere you can put another special weapon in. Maybe give the Sanguinary Guard 1 Infernal Pistol or something like that. But, so a good amount of 3 damage weapons, Vanguard Vets, Sanguinary Guard as sort of your heavy hitting units with some Eradicator fire support. I feel like this list is probably just... I just think it's maybe too much in characters. I think that's what I'm coming back to. Like, these 2 characters together are 305 points, and these 2 together are like 325 points. So it's, thank you for subscribing or following Funk Bastard. It's 630 something points in characters. It's kind of nuts. It's literally almost a third, right? You're like only 30 points away. That's right, yeah. 2,000 divided by 3. Yeah, you're literally only like 30 points away from having a third of your army as characters. It's a lot. I mean, I guess you're really counting on the priest doing work here and resurrecting things, but you don't have anything super expensive to resurrect, right? I mean, I guess the most expensive model you'll have is Blade Guard Veteran at 35 or a Sanguinary Guard at 32, which is okay. I mean, I guess. Oh well, I guess you could hang. I was going to say, I guess you could res Eradicators, but you're not going to be doing that if your priest is your warlord. Then your priest's probably going to be with the Sanguinary Guard and the Vanguard Veterans. So, I mean, there's probably something to be said. I don't know. I tried to play a list like this with 4 characters, with the Librarian, Dread, and that a bunch of times recently, and against the new codexes of like Death Guard and Sisters of Battle. I really, really struggled. I think 630 points in characters is too much. I mean, you could drop some things, but like I think you need to drop like 100 points. Like 4 characters can work, but not. You know, because like the chaplain on the bike he's been set up almost like a smash character. Your captain on the bike, in some ways, apart from like turn 1 and 2, is also set up as a smash character, and your Librarian Dread is very much set up as a smash character. So, like, I think you can maybe run 2 of those, but I don't think you can run 3. But anyway, anti-monster horde effectiveness is probably like an 8.5. I think it probably is a little bit lower because if you took out 200 points of one of these characters and like bumped up, you know, you could basically have like a whole other jump unit in there or something, or make these other units quite a bit stronger, or maybe make these 10 Vanguard vets with options to combat squad. The Chapter Master on the bike in this list, you're kind of right. The Chapter Master on the bike, he works really well if you've got a lot of things to put Chapter Master rerolls on. I mean, I guess you've got the Eradicators and the Redemptor, but the Eradicators are kind of slow. I mean, if you're advancing them, yeah, they can keep up a little bit, but you're losing half their firepower. Maybe you just want to run this guy as a regular captain then. I mean, that at least makes your points spent on characters a little bit more sane. Like, you'd be down to like 590, but it's still an awful lot. Hey Sellers, good evening, how you doing? Mobility in the list then. Blade Guard Veterans aren't mobile. Eradicators aren't mobile. Redemptor, I guess, is not super mobile either. Everything else can get around from guerrilla tactics or upon wings of fire, give or take, and the whirlwind, I guess, can probably sit on an objective. So I think mobility is probably fine. I've seen more mobile lists, definitely. I think probably like an 8 is fine. And then specialization, right? Like, we do have the ability to fight last. Even though we've got 4 characters, we actually have no denies here, right? There is no... Oh no, sorry, we've got the denies. I guess we've got a couple of denies from the Librarian Dreadnought, my bad. I just always think of him as a more beatstick character. We've got a couple of units from actions. We definitely have a bunch of 3 damage weapons. I mean, we've got the two OBSEC units as well. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the specialization is too bad. Like, I think I'd probably do like 8.9, 8.5. Sorry, I just think that I mean, in chat, is anyone running this many amounts of characters and making it work? I guess, you know, or is it? Yeah, it's 630 points in characters. So I'd be interested in chat, right? If you've got a list that you know of right this moment, like, go and put how many points in characters that you're running in the chat. I don't need to know which characters that you're running or anything like that, but just like the three, if you add up all the points spent on all your characters, like how much are you actually spending at the moment? I'm going to check my list that I've been running really quick as well, just because. Yeah, like I'm running 230 plus 165, so I'm running like 395 points of characters. Which I guess is still a lot, but like 630 seems insane. Martin's running 280. Okay. So yeah, I think this is around a 40-point list. Other things that people say, and not just myself, is sometimes people say if you want to run a dreadnought, for example, like a Redemptor, they're a lot more effective if you would run two of them. Some people call it the rule of two, right? Like if you're going to run a Redemptor, it's not going to be super effective on its own. You need to run two. I'm running my battalion, but my competitive list is around 495 points. Yeah, I'm running a battalion now as well, Mark, for 395 points. 420 in HQ, plus 115 for Primar. A Chief Apothecary for Primar is 535. Yeah, I think you're probably okay around I think 500 points. Thank you for subscribing, Luke. I think 500 points is like, or maybe just over, like Kerry said he's just over. I think just over that you can get away with. I don't think you could, I really don't think you can go over 600 points. I think if you have over 600 points in characters, I think you probably need to rethink a little bit about the list. There's the question mark as well about the single Redemptor. Like I said, some people generally don't think that Redemptors are very effective when they're run on their own. I did that. I tried that a few weeks ago, a single Redemptor, and didn't like it, so I've changed my list to include multiple again. And there are some question marks about Eradicators. Some people love them, some people hate them. Some people love how they do a lot of damage for a small amount of points, but the disadvantage of their lack of movement, the splitting fire, the advancing, running over 600 including an assassin. Interesting. So does 600 with an assassin, does that include 4 or 5? Is anyone actually including more than 5 characters then? Or sorry, anyone including more than 4 characters in the chat? I tried running one Dreadnought, dead turn 1. Yeah, do you know what? I tried running one Dreadnought. I think the thing with the Redemptor Dreadnought, right, is it is possible, and I've definitely done it on stream, to roll badly on the number of plasma shots you get, let's say 2 turns in a row, or even if you only have a single Redemptor, you could easily roll badly and go like, all right, 1 plasma shot this turn, 1 plasma shot this turn, and in the end of the game, you're sat there thinking the Redemptor is really a pile of junk. But when you run 2 of them, you're much less likely to just end up with like, you're not going to roll 2 1s for 2 turns in a row on the number of plasma shots, right? You're going to get a more average roll, I feel like. So yeah, that's one criticism I would say. I would also, like I mentioned, some of the Warlord traits and stuff in this list that I feel like could be done a little bit better. And yeah, I mean, the only other thing I would say is like I'm always torn with the Librarian Dreadnought. Like I like giving him Iron Resolve to make him stronger. But like I also really like Psychic Mastery to make his powers more reliable. So like he's a really difficult choice. But then in this list you don't have a Warlord trait on him, which is I mean, you could save the 1 CP for Armor and Dominus off the Priest and put it on the Librarian Dreadnought. That might be a better way to do it. With 1,000 Suns and Grey Knights Codex, Assassins will seem like a good idea. Yeah, I mean, Assassins are probably going to be coming a little bit more back into the meta. I'm sure Clixus is something. Hey, Zacharias, good evening. Hey, Adam. Yeah, I did a nice breakaway. Thanks for asking. I'm getting another Redemptor, so I have 2. It's awesome. Like, I love the Redemptor, so I think they're really good. 4 characters plus Assassin. Dropped Library and Dread for a Lieutenant with the Reliquary of Gathmore for the Anti-Psyker. See, I think if you want to go Anti-Psyker, I would probably go Calixus Assassin, right? Over that Relic. I mean, the Relic can do some damage. Yeah, and I think I rate Iron Resolve on the Library and Dreadnought more. I mean, 6s aren't that hard to cast powers on, but yeah, Psychic Mastery just does make it a bit more reliable. So yeah, I think this is like a 40 list, 40 points. I think that it doesn't have much Horde firepower. It possibly also has some mobility problems with Eradicators. I'm not worried about mobility with the Blade Guard, and then the other thing I don't like about the list is too many points in characters. I think if you can, I think because every single character here has had the upgrade, right? You know, you've got your Chief Librarian upgrade, your Chief Apothecary upgrade, your Chapter Master upgrade, and your Master of Sanctity upgrade. I think that's pushing it too much towards that. So, I'd love for you to play some games with this, Ben, and let me know in the comments or, you know, Discord or something if my feedback was useful, because like I think in my list I upgrade 2 characters, or maybe, do you know what, I actually upgrade 3 in my current list. So I upgrade the Chief Chapter Master and the Chief Librarian and the Master of the Forge, but yes, it's just the overall points cost in the characters. I feel like last edition characters were amazing, you know, like, but just this edition characters have kind of fallen down a little bit. They're more about the buffs that they bring than them just doing damage and stuff like that. So I think that you'll end up hurting yourself a little bit by bringing so many really expensive characters like that, Benjamin. I feel like you probably give up a little bit of map control as well by spending that much on characters. And this is just from my experience of playing a lot of games recently and struggling against the New Sisters Codex, struggling a little bit against the Death Guard Codex. Okay. Kerry bought a second Redemptor with birthday money and will build it Friday, tempted to paint it solid gold to be obnoxious. I don't know if you saw my Death Company Redemptor, but that was a fun project. It's not finished yet. I still want to do a bit more on it, but it's good enough to put on the table now. I run Assault Hellblaster Squad in my list with a Bite Captain for overcharges. Should I drop the Hellblasters for another Redemptor? I mean, I guess it depends if you already have one Redemptor, right? You have both predicting... Oh, you have both Assassins predicting the meta. Good evening, Hydra. Yeah, I mean, I think the Calixus Assassin... The Calixus Assassin is pretty great anyway, in that she's pretty difficult to hit, right? You need to have the ballistic skill and weapon skill modified to 6+. Okay, we're going to jump into the next list in just a second. Let me see if I can answer a few questions on chat. Yeah, Sellers says that 9th edition isn't very Hero Hammer, and I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah, 9th edition, too many characters can end up hurting you. Elliot says, I've got my first ever game coming on Friday. Is there a unit I should look to get for the future? If you've not submitted a list to me to review before, Elliot, you could do that. And also, if you check on the channel for the tier, we've got a series called Tier Lists now, right? If I pull up the channel real quick, so like this is the URL. I'll just put it in chat if you don't know how to get there. And you scroll down here and look for tier list. If you click on this tier list, but wherever it is here, tier list, this is the tier list videos we've been making for all the different units and placing them in like a score of like S are like really strong units and D are units that you would put in a dumpster. Some people weren't familiar with the term dumpster, but it just means like a trash can outside. So I'd watch some of these videos. Probably like Elites would probably be the place I would start and watch some of these videos if you're looking on how to expand your army. Upgrading for me, upgrading the characters for me is worth it if they synergize with the concepts of your list. Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Like, the upgrades aren't that cheap, especially the Chief Apothecary upgrade. It's crazy expensive now with the jump pack. So if the list doesn't feel like there's a ton of synergy between the upgrades, then you're potentially wasting points, I guess. All right, I tried putting an Alpha Strike list together, like you that you suggested, and hope it scores well. Okay, so I think this is a Flesh Tearers list, yeah, and I think we went over one of Zacharus's lists maybe like 2 or 3 months ago now. Do you feel like the Angels are falling behind? Yeah, there's definitely some power creep with the new codexes, Lucas. I don't think anyone can deny that. In some ways, we just gotta make the best of what we got, because it's probably going to be a while before we get any new rules. Maybe they'll FAQ some points costs, but right now, I think against some of the new codexes, we're just in a tough position, I guess. But I think we can still win games. You just got to play smart and make sure that, like Adam just said, you need to make sure that everything in your list synergizes well together. All right. So in this list, the Vanguard veterans, Gabriel, and the Chaplain will be in a drop pod, and Cursors forward deployment and turn 1 charge with Haywire Mine for the counter charge. Eliminators 1 Sergeant as Quake Bolts to give the +1 to hit for the Incursors to increase output. Death Company Forlorn Fury and turn 1 charge. Invictors, the same as the rest, forward deploy, hose the enemy with fire, and charge hard targets. Alright, this list is going to be... this is like going completely all in, I'm guessing. So let's see what we're looking at. Right, so it's a battalion, starting with 11 CP. Seems like a lot. And we've got Angels Ascendant to take, what, 1? I forget Angels Ascendant. It's the one that lets a Flesh Tearers unit take 1 of our relics, right? Angels Ascendant. Let me just read it. Oh no, this is one where the Sergeant can take the Special Issue War Gear. Alright, so one of our Sergeant has Quake Bolts. Alright, cool. Right, so we've got a Chaplain with of Wrath and Rage and the Canticle of Hate and the Adamantium Mantle and an Infernal Pistol. Okay, of Wrath and Rage is a Flesh Tearers Warlord trait that each time this Warlord makes a melee attack, an unmodified score of 6 gets an additional hit. So we've got the Chaplain with Gabriel Seth and a squad of Vanguard veterans. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with Lightning Claws and Storm Shields in a drop pod. Okay, interesting. Canticle of Hate to give you the +2 to the charge range, right? I would also be tempted here to drop Adamantium Mantle and take... why would you not take Icon of the Angel here, right? To give you the reroll to the charges, because you've got the Chaplain, you've got a 7-inch charge coming out the drop pod, so you really want to be able to make sure that all 3 units get in. So I would 100%, I feel like, take Icon of the Angel. There's a website, Any Dice, that you can use, which I use all the time. So imagine we're going to roll 2d6. And we need a 7, so we're going to re-roll 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then you hit calculate and you hit at least. So on a 7-inch charge re-rolls, you get 82%. If we don't have any re-rolls, we're just going to roll 2d6, and we hit at least 58%. So I guess, like, if you don't, your rerolls there are going to boost your charge percent. What is that? 82 divided by 58. So you're going to be like 41% more likely to make the charge on each unit. If you auto pass the litany and it gives rerolls. Canticle of Hate gives rerolls? Really? Am I being dumb here? I think Canticle of Hate just adds 2 inches to your charge range. I don't think it lets you reroll the charges. If it does, I've been playing it wrong the whole time. Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. You need to have some way to reroll your charges here. Canticle of Hate gives you +2 to your charge roll, and then an additional 3-inch move on the pile-in and consolidate, which is amazing, right? But you need to have something in this list that's going to let you reroll those charges around the drop pods. Okay, so that's fine. Easy mistake to fix. Just swap out Adamantium Mantle for that. Why would you not take Seth as your warlord? Yeah, I mean, what is Seth's warlord trait? That is a good question. Isn't it units? It's been a little while since I've read Seth's rules. 1 second. Seth's warlord trait is oh, it doesn't. It says it on the actual warlord trait page. Merciless Butcher, which is each time this warlord is selected to fight, make one additional attack with every one of its melee weapons. Sorry, with one of its melee weapons for 5 models within 3 inches. I guess because Seth gets to fight twice, maybe you just don't feel like that adds enough value. I mean, Seth already gets 5 attacks, 6 on the charge. I guess he gets to fight again, and he already has that aura, right? So his chainsword. Sorry, yeah, so he already has the aura where like lightning claws from the guys next to him will be 2 damage instead of 1 on rolls of 6s. Yeah, it's probably not worth it because you're probably not going after like hordes with that, right? Like you're only going to get bonus attacks out of that if you're going after a lot of weak units, and because Seth has a 3 damage chainsword with +2 strength -2, you're very unlikely to be going after that. So you're probably occasionally it's going to get you like 1 extra attack, but for the most time it's going to give you no bonus, I guess. This was one of the things we talked about in some of the Blood Angels named characters in the HQ video on Friday, right? Where like a bunch of the warlord traits given to the main characters don't actually help us that much. I mean, you're right. Sure, Seth can solo hordes, but do you really? I feel like if you're spending like what is it, 160 points on Seth, 85 on the chaplain, I guess like what was it on the lightning claws, 162 here, and then the drop pod's 70, so that's like what, 232 plus 85, so just call that around 300. If you're going to spend 500 points or 475 points, I guess, you're probably going to want to be going after like hard targets and not some horde. Like you're not going to want to kill poxwalkers with that, right? Highland Phoenix is a good point as well. You might be better actually bringing company veterans here. If I'm correct as well, Highland, they increased the cost of storm shields on the Vanguard veterans. They did not increase the cost of storm shields on the company veterans, right? So the company veterans might actually be a better choice. I mean, you can essentially field the same models here, and then they have the bodyguard rule as well, which is pretty nice. And I guess it saves you like a few points here and there that you can do something with. We then have, what is it, 1 squad of incursors, 2 squad of infiltrators. We have a large death company to get like a Forlorn Fury off on, so that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with chainswords and bolt pistols, 3 with chainswords and infernal pistols, and 1 thunderhammer. I'd love to see another thunderhammer in this squad. I guess we'll see if we could find some points further down the list. We have 2 Invictus tactical warsuits with the twin Iron Hail autocannon. We have the Sanguinary Guard with axe, I think this Power Fist and the Sanguinary Guard has no value. 2 Infernal Pistols and then a bunch of swords. So first of all, I would get rid of this Power Fist and the Sanguinary Guard. Get that switched out to like probably just an axe. Switch these guys out to Vanguard Veterans. And I guess at that point, because you've got 6 Storm Shields here, that's 6 points. You lose that Power Fist, that gives you probably 11 points. At that point, you could probably just lose one of these Infernal Pistols and then have 2 Thunderhammers in this Death Company squad, which I think would be better. As Reziel says, hammers are the Melta of Blood Angels, so you could do that. We then have 2 squads of Eliminators, one with Quake Bolts. And then the Whirlwind. Oh, the Stormbolter and the Whirlwind is it's like the Whirlwind should be obscured so the enemy can't shoot it. So in that case, the Stormbolter provides very little or no value. If the enemy gets in combat with a Whirlwind and you're going to be able to kill what's in combat with them with a Stormbolter, great, but like I feel like that's never going to happen. And yeah, I guess I would definitely try and get Icon of the Angel up on this Chaplain. And this is an interesting list in that just having the 2 characters actually kind of makes it a good one for not letting the enemy score particularly well. Like, there's no Assassinate pick against this list. There's also barely any Bring It Down pick against this list as well. So, in some ways, this list is pretty cool. I'm trying to remember what we said Tactical War Suits. Like, we said Tactical War Suits were good for Flesh Tearers, potentially, but generally bad for regular Blood Angels. For this list, right, it's all about the turn 1 Alpha Strike, and it's a huge turn 1 potential, right? Like, if you get to go first and you have Gabriel Seth and the Chaplain and the Vanguard Vets dropping in, joined by a turn 1 Death Company, Forlorn Fury, joined by Incursors and Tactical War Suits, there's a lot to like there, but for me, it's a very much like if I was playing poker, for example, it feels like it's an all-in, right? And I feel like it's a little bit of like a. Sometimes in poker, right, when you don't have many cards left or many chips left and you get dealt some cards and you kind of just have to go all in without even knowing what the cards you've been dealt are. In some ways, that's kind of like, if we actually break it down and score this list will probably score pretty well. But I guess the big question is, are you okay going all in when you don't really know what the enemy have, right? Because they could have enough crap. Like, it could be a Necron list that has enough Scarabs or something that could screen their whole deployment zone, right? So there's no way you can get that drop pod into a good position and make any critical turn 1 charges. They may also know that you've got the Death Company, and they'll just be like, right, well, we'll just deploy 30 inches away from the Death Company. One trick you can do, I guess, in deployment is put the Death Company down last so they don't know where they're going to be. But if you do that in this list, then it means that probably your other units, like your War Suits and that, are going to be quite exposed, because ideally you kind of want to be putting them down last. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. This is definitely one way to play Flesh Tearers, and I think if you play them this way, you can get like a really good result, but you are very much just, before you've even seen your cards, just going, alright, I'm going to go all in on the next hand. And if anyone, if you get that first turn, it could be amazing. If the enemy get the first turn and your positioning isn't on point, it could be very, very difficult. You can play Blood Angels a bit like this as well. Like, I guess if you take the Wrath of Baal and you just try and throw everything forward super quickly, super early. I never found I had a high win rate personally when I was doing that. So let's do some scoring. We've got 3 OBSEC units, and they're all they're all full boss units, so I think we were going to start with like an 8.5 on that. I may even be tempted to go for a 9 on OBSEC, because with smart positioning, I submitted a 2,000 point battalion 1 hour 30 minutes before the stream. There's a long queue, Lucky Jim. So I think for like non-members, you're looking at like an 8-week wait for your list to be reviewed. I get like quite a lot of submissions, so if you submitted it, I will pick it up and add it to the queue. So yeah, OBSEC is probably a 9. If you drop this drop pod down really cleverly, and open the doors, maybe you can like nudge it onto an objective or something, so you've got that potential as well. And drop pods just dropped onto objectives can be a pain in the arse, because they actually take quite a bit of firepower to remove. And what are they like? I think they've got, I think it's toughness 6-8 wounds on a drop pod. Like they're not pushovers. Like you're not going to shift them with like bolt guns, so you actually have to fire some heavy weapons at them, which can be a pain, right? So I think we're probably looking at like a 9 for the OBSEC. Anti-horde and infantry, I guess, like you've got your war suits that have a little bit of firepower. The Sanguinary Guard have a little bit of firepower. I guess against horde lists, you could shoot the eliminators with that. I forget the type of ammo. It's the hyperfrag rounds where they're like strength 5 and blast. So each eliminator squad could potentially get 9 shots. So you could do a little bit around that. Drop pods holding objectives is valid, yeah. It can be. And then you've got your troop choices here that can do a little bit of firepower. Not much. I really don't rate incursors or infiltrators guns at all, just because they're 0 AP. You get 10 shots, usually you hit about 6, usually you wound about 3, and then they're 0 AP, so they're lucky if they kill a single model, I feel like, infiltrators and incursors and shooting. Oh, this is a much bigger incursor squad, I missed that, sorry, so this is actually 10 incursors. With a haywire mine as well. Okay, alright, so yeah, we're very much pushing all in. Okay. Yeah, I think a 9 for OBSEC is probably pretty fair then. Anti-horde infantry, firepower is kind of okay. I feel like it's maybe a little bit stronger than the last list, but like it's still fine. I mean, that changed. Here's the one thing, I guess, is like it's going to come down to the opponent's screens, you know? Right? Like if they screen the Death Company well, if they can screen the drop pod well, but I guess like if we actually break it down into like what damage can we do then? I mean, like I'd really like to see the second Thunderhammer in here. Sorry, we got. Hey Jordan, thanks for subscribing. We got 4 3 damage weapons here. I guess add 2 more from the tactical war suits, that gives us 6. 2 more infernal pistols here, that gives us 8. And then I guess like Seth, I guess fighting twice, stealth, that gives us 9. Infernal pistol here gives us 10. So we've got about 10 3 damage weapons. I think we could probably lose this Power Fist, the Stormbolter, and I can't remember what the third thing was. Oh, and then make these guys actually company veterans rather than Vanguard veterans. And then that probably gives you enough points to get that third Thunderhammer, and that gives you that potentially gives you 11 3 damage weapons, right? But yeah, second Thunderhammer and Icon of the Angels feel like 2 things that are going to help this list immensely. Anti-vehicle monster, I think it's strong, right? Like I think you can kill a lot of if the Death Company had that second hammer, I think it'd probably be a 9. Without that second hammer, I'd probably be tempted to go like 8-5. I feel like they need the second hammer just because they don't. With a -1 to hit, I guess you've got the quake bolts to average it out, so you'd get like a lot of value out of having that second hammer, I feel like. At that point, with 2 Death Company guys with hammers, you're potentially like talking 10 hammers hitting on 3s, as opposed to like 1 hammer. And then I guess maybe, you know, it gives you more options for your quake bolts as well, right? Like you could choose like, hey, I want to quake bolts the guys the Death Company are fighting, as opposed to maybe what like the Vanguard veterans and Seth and that are all fighting. I think that gives you quite a few more options. Mobility, I think, is probably going to be fine. Like I think it's probably a 9. Yes, you have a couple of things that aren't mobile, but they're probably just going to be sitting on objectives while everything else pushes forward. And yeah, I mean, I guess you could argue 8.5 because you've got a bunch of Phobos units that aren't super mobile, but like you already said at the top, you're going to be deploying them super aggressively and potentially going for like turn 1 charges. So I think you're going to have no problems there. Specialization. Yeah, I mean, like there's no Psyker, right? So it's like you've got no denies. You've got no fight last. You have enough units for actions. You probably have enough 3 damage weapons that could be stronger. I'd probably put it down as like an 8. Highland wants you to go 3 hammers on the Death Company. I mean, the reason to have the Haywire Mines is to prevent the countercharge, or just to scare off a little bit of countercharging. But yeah, no, I think, like I said, I think this was going to be a high scoring list. I think it still is at 42. I think if you make the changes that we said, maybe you go to like 42.5. But I think you shouldn't fixate on the score, right? Like I think the score is just a ballpark for like how the list's going to play. I don't play Flesh Tearers enough to know what would need to change here to give it like a little bit more I don't think versatility is the right word, but to give it a little bit more like it does feel like you're very, very reliant on everything going for you in turn 1. Yeah, you're correct, Lucky Jim. +2 strength on the Crozius adds to the strength of whatever character holds it, essentially, yes. But yeah, I think it's a real tough one, right? Because if you go first, there's a very good chance that you can engage the opponent across the whole battlefield in close combat, and it's going to be very difficult for them to even maybe charge you or shoot you, because you could maybe wrap a bunch of units and you can cause huge problems. If the opponent gets to go first, though, I guess that's my thought, because a lot of your stuff will have to be forwardly exposed. Yeah, I think a couple of things that we suggested could help. So I guess try it, and yeah, I think run it and let us know what you think, because I guess what you need to do is you need to run it where you go first, and you need to run it where you go second. But yeah, I think it's. I guess I wouldn't get fixated on the score, right? I would just think that I think this list works. I think it probably works pretty well if you go first. I guess the question is, how does it handle going second? Because if it doesn't handle going second so much, then I guess there needs to be some tweaks. Oscar, what happens if you give a Space Marine captain who already has a Storm Shield? A 4+ save, a Storm Shield. What it does is a Storm Shield adds 1 to your original armor save, right? So your Space Marine captain normally saves on a 3+, so the Storm Shield lets them save on a 2+. But he keeps the same 4+ invulnerable save. Nothing changes with that. Okay, yeah, please let us know, because it's been a little while since you submit the other list. But yeah, you definitely need to get adamantium mantle and icon of the angel in there. I do wonder, like the other thing that you can do that's pretty neat is like the company champion can be pretty cool for 70 points or 55 points if you don't upgrade him, and he can join them in the drop pod. But yeah, I think the Stormbolter and the Whirlwind is kind of worthless. I think the Power Fist and the Death and the Sanguinary Guard is kind of worthless. And I'd love to see a second hammer. 3 hammers make sure... 3 hammers with Crate Bolts means that you will be deleting a unit if you make that Forlorn Fury, I think. So that might actually be worth... What Highland Phoenix said might actually be worth testing as well. As the other thing to say is, as Flesh Tearers, would it not maybe be better to take 2 Incursors and 1 Infiltrators? I feel like as a Blood Angels player, it's fine to go 2 Infiltrators and 1 Incursor, because like Blood Angels, we're a little bit, we're going to sit, or I think it's okay to sit 2 squads of troops, but I think with your Eliminators potentially able to hold objectives as well, it might be worth like saving 15 points here, get that second Incursor squad in, and then that gives you a second unit that can potentially charge early in the game or be deployed very forwardly early in the game as well. It also frees up 15 points, which is exactly what you need for another Thunderhammer as well. I would keep a good number of Bolt, Pistol, and Chainsword guys, like 4 or 5 of them at least, to take the wounds on, but like that's something that I thought about as well. The only issue, I guess, with the Assault Intercessors is you're running across the battlefield, Highland Phoenix, which is maybe okay. It's maybe okay. Yeah, and the one thing with the Eliminators, I actually forgot to see how you've got the Eliminators armed. Did you put on one of the Eliminator cap sergeants, it might be worth taking that Bolt Carbine that lets them do the additional move, right? Because it means you can basically get like a 12. They can deploy advanced, and then you can get a 12-inch move out of them. They can move 6 inches. They can shoot. Then they can move another 6 inches. So that's something. That's something worth thinking about. I've been considering reserving Assault Intercessors to come in for the flanks. Thanks for following, Mono. Yeah, I mean, I've been considering that as well, Steel Rain. I actually have Assault Intercessors in my current list as well, just because I had like 95 points, and they are very cheap. They are very cheap troop choices, right? They're the cheapest Primaris models that we can put on the battlefield in terms of troops at 19 points a model. And for Blood Angels, like, they get 6 attacks per model, right? Or is it 6 attacks? They get 2 by default, 1 for the chainsword. I think it's like 26 attacks from 5 of them. What would it be? 2 attacks, 3 for charging, 4 for Savage Echoes, 5 for the chainsword. Yeah, so a squad of 5 of them gets 26 chainsword attacks, and then you can pay 2 CP and have them fight again. I mean, it's sad. The one sad thing about the Assault Intercessors fight again is I think it should be a bit like Transhuman, right? If you're fighting again with like less than 5 models, it should probably cost 1 CP. If you're fighting again with 10 models, it could cost 2 CP. I feel like that would have been a better way that the rule could have worked. But yeah, I mean, at 5 power level, you can easily afford to reserve them, bring them in. But yeah, I mean, flanks are a little bit easier to screen. And if the enemy has a lot of reserves coming in for the flanks, there's no objectives so much on the flanks. You can use that to your advantage. There's a question mark around that. So yeah, okay. Thanks for the list submission, Sakras. Hopefully I gave you some little improvements there. All right, let's move on to Michael next. Good evening, Aaron. How are you doing? All right, so Michael's list, and it's his first submission apparently. Okay, cool. So we start with a patrol detachment, and we've got 1 extra relic in this detachment. We've got the Chapter Master, who has the Artisan of War, and the Adamantium Mantle, and the Angel's Artifice, and the Infernal Pistol, and a Thunderhammer. So this puts him on like toughness 6 with 7 wounds. He's got a Thunderhammer. He's got an Infernal Pistol. He's actually paid five too many points for him. He's only 165 points. Why is he paid 5 more points for him? Infernal Pistol, Thunderhammer. I'm not sure. I'm convinced he's 165 points. He always comes in. This is Michael Corda. He always comes in at 165 points for me with this build. Okay. I think I'm going to check it. Chapter Master upgrade costs 40 points. Captain on a bike costs 100, so that puts him at 140. Thunderhammer costs 20, that's 160. Infernal Pistol puts him on 165. Yeah. Okay. Oh, he's not a... Sorry. He's not on a bike. He's on a jump pack. Did I miss that? It's late, guys. 11:15 here, and I've had a long day of driving. Sorry. Okay, yeah. So he is 170 points. Yes, correct. Okay, so Chapter Master not on a bike with a jump pack and Thunderhammer Infernal Pistol. Okay. Death Company Captain on a bike. This is probably why I got confused. Death Company Captain is on a bike with a Storm Shield and the Teeth of Terra and Imperium Sword. That's funny, that's exactly how I ran my Death Company Captain. And I played him for he was actually the Death Company Captain that I ran like this at 130 points. He was actually the same everything. Teeth of Terra, Storm Shield, Imperium Sword. He was actually a staple in my list that went 11 wins in a row. And the Death Visions for him, the only one I really got value out of was on a Bridge of a Vengeful Spirit, which is the +1 attack for every 5 models near him. And I got value out of it just once. And it was against it was against Necrons, actually, I think. And I got 4 extra attacks or something. So I had 15 attacks, hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s. 2 damage each. And it absolutely wrecked a ton of Necron warriors. But I amn't running him anymore. I actually didn't find him that survivable, right? Because he kind of runs off and does his own thing, and he kind of costs 2. You've basically you've got a relic weapon on him, and you've got a warlord trait on him, so he kind of costs you 2 CP as well. Just looking at him again makes it, when you see the amount of attacks he can do for 2 damage, it's kind of nice. But I mean, I wonder how he does against, if you think about 5 regular Death Company guys with chain swords, they get 30 attacks. So although this guy gets 10 attacks, they could get 30. Same sort of point cost, 125 points for 5 Death Company with chain swords. I guess it depends on how many CP you're willing to blow at the beginning, right? That's probably the main reason I dropped him, was the amount of CP that he's going to cost me. Unleash him on Morganval. Well, Morganval has -1 to damage. So I think that's possibly the reason that I dropped him, because the Teeth of Terra looks great on paper, but against anything that's doing the -1 damage, it's kind of neutered. So okay. I mean, I don't hate this character, but it's a strange one. I obviously managed to use mine to some effect. In a world where you're trying to build a battalion or something and you don't have enough choices for a character, then is 5 Death Companies. I guess my thought is just 5 Death Company is kind of similar to this guy, right? This guy has an invulnerable save, I guess, which helps, but he has about half as many wounds as 5 Death Company. He has about a third of the attacks, but he can do 2 damage per attack. So yeah, it's a tough one. I don't hate him. But yeah, I think what Steel Rain's saying, it's hard to justify him. Can you tell me if it's generally speaking worth taking any of the named characters, as people I've spoken to say it isn't, and I'm new and haven't got my head around anything yet? Elliot, go ahead and go to the Blood Angels Commander channel on YouTube, which is like YouTube. I'll just put the link in chat, so you can actually get to this channel, and scroll down to where it says tier list, and then click on the video that says HQ tier list. We go over all the named characters in that video. We'll tell you what's good about them, we'll tell you what's bad about them. It is a longer video, like 2 hours 40 minutes or something, but if you're thinking about buying any new models, or you want to know which of your models is good or bad, watch these tier list videos. They're the ones that I've been doing with Tony and Mark, and we break down basically every unit in the game. We'll go through everything. And yeah, sometimes the chat doesn't agree with us, or sometimes we weren't 100% clear, but if you go through those videos, then leave a comment and I'll answer any questions for you. Firstborn Death Company are definitely better than Primaris Death Company. I've played this list once, and the Death Company character killed enemy infiltrators, helping me to come in from reserves. Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike him at all, right? And if you think about it, right, like, he can do a 12-inch Forlorn Fury, the Death Company character, and then he can move 14 inches because he's on a bike, so he can potentially get a 26-inch move in turn 1, and then he's got a re-rollable charge. So he can go in very early and pick things off, and I think probably that's how I used him, right? Like, I just used him as a bullet, like, going straight in, picking things off with the Death Company captain on a bike. And I didn't dislike him. The only thing I disliked about him was he's costing me 2 CP, and in so many of my lists I feel like I'm always CP starved. But yeah, if I also say, Michael, I don't know if you've watched any of my streams before, but any suggestions I make, probably it's best to play a couple of games first, with my suggestions in mind, before you go and like throw your list away and start making changes based on what I say, right? I found the playlist. Great, Elliot. You're welcome. Since your video, John, I'm trying to make the Sangorder work. I think he's an interesting counter to some bad BS combos. Yeah, if the Sangorder could have fight first, man, I think that would be so great. I loved the Sangorder last edition. I do kind of think that, like what you said, if you run the Death Company captain into a -1 damage enemy, does that make the Slay the War Master vision actually a potential option? That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, here's the problem though with any of those, because I don't know if you watched my game a couple of weeks ago, Jar Miniatures against Sisters of Battle. I'd picked up the power Psychic Scourge, which is like, you cast the Psychic Power and then you and your opponent roll off, and if you win, you basically can do like mortal wounds to them, and if it's even, you do 1 mortal wound, and if it's less, you do nothing. I think I cast that power like 4 times against Andrew, and 4 times I failed the roll off and did 0 damage against him, or 0 mortal wounds. So Slay the War Master vision, I mean, it's just a 50-50. It's just pretty rough at 50-50, I guess, right? And it's actually worse than 50-50, because I think if you both roll the same dice, so if you roll a 3 and the enemy rolls a 3, then you both have to re-roll. So kind of like how you do roll at the start of the game. So Slay the War Master, to me, kind of feels like you're clutching at straws if you're trying to rely on it, right? Right. I do remember that, Adam. Yes, I thought at one point we weren't CP hungry until all these new codexes came in and make us have to burn our CP like crazy. Veritas Vital helps with CP regeneration. No, like ultras. What is Veritas Vita? I have no idea what that is, Mr. Pog. Enlighten me. Alright, so we have 1 squad of Incursors and then a squad of Tactical Marines, which you don't see too often. And we have 1 heavy weapon in the Tactical Marine squad, which is a Grav Cannon. Okay. And the Sergeant has a Chainsword. We then have a Vanguard detachment, which has a Librarian Dreadnought with Quickening, Wings of Sanguinius, Iron Resolve, and a Metal Gun, and that's what we talked about earlier. I think Iron Resolve is the right choice on the... he is the right choice in the Librarian Dreadnought. Librarian and Terminator Armor with Might of Heroes and Psychic Fortress. I think that Null Zone is the better play here. I tried Might of Heroes in a bunch of games, and I think it's decent, but I think the threat of Null Zone is potentially better. Yeah, okay. I see that rung a bell, so I guess, yeah, I don't think we have that relic anymore in 9th edition. And the reason that I think Null Zone is better is because it combos well with like a bunch of our stuff. And I guess, like, just looking down your list, you have Death Company, no invulnerable save. Redemptor Dreadnoughts, no invulnerable save. Sanguinary Guard, no invulnerable save. So if you were going to go ahead and cast Null Zone around all Librarian Dreadnought, I guess, as well, no invulnerable save, right? If you're going to go and cast Null Zone around any of these things, then you lose nothing and the enemy loses a really strong invulnerable save. Now, some people play... Might of Heroes is a tricky one. When it first came out, I definitely played it wrong. Might of Heroes only affects a single unit. Or single model, rather, I think is the wording on it. So if you're going to cast Might of Heroes on your Sanguinary Guard, one member of the Sanguinary Guard gets +1, what is it, strength, attack, and toughness? Like, it doesn't affect the whole unit. If it affected the whole unit, it would be great. But so in this case, you're probably... The most value you're going to get out of Mighty Heroes is maybe casting on your Redemptor or your Librarian Dreadnought. And yeah, it's going to do a little bit of work, but like I feel like the threat of Null Zone... and the reason I say that is, like, I played against Mortarion a few weeks ago and I lost the game. And I feel like if I'd had the potential to Null Zone Mortarion, I would have been able... Like, I lost the game, but I actually had a lot more units on the battlefield than the enemy at the end of the game. Like, Mortarion was his only model left. But I really struggled to kill Mortarion because he's just, like, so survivable with, like a 4+ invulnerable save, 18 wounds, I think it is, -1 damage, and then a 5+ feel no pain, right? So being able to turn off his invulnerable save and basically start cutting straight through him with those Sanguinary Guard would have probably actually won me the game pretty easily. So there are games where you don't get a lot of value out of Null Zone, but I think the threat and the importance of it cannot be understated. That's from coming from, like, the list I had that won 11 games in a row included Null Zone, and I dropped Null Zone because I thought it wasn't doing all that much work. But I was trying to, I haven't been winning all that much recently, so I'm trying to think what was I missing? What was like right in front of my nose, and I wasn't appreciating it when I changed my list, right? Okay, then we have a small Death Company, 5 guys with 1 hammer, and I think that is I think that is the right choice. If you just have 5 Death Company, I'd probably put them into reserve, honestly, or, well, when I say reserve, I mean I deep strike them, rather. We have a Redemptor Dreadnought with the Macro Plasma, the Onslaught, and the Rocket Pods. That's fine. We have a pretty small Sanguinary Guard here, and it's just 5 models, and we've got 1 Infernal Pistol in it. I generally like Sanguinary Guards in squad of 7 to 9's the best. I feel like 5 probably don't kill what I want them to kill, but the very next thing in your list is like 2 Thunderhammer Terminators and 3 Lightning Claw Terminators. So I guess if the Sanguinary Guard can get backed up by somebody else, then I'm probably okay with this. But if you expect the Sanguinary Guard to jump in and kill things with just 5 of them, I would assume that they will not do that. I assume Psychic Scourge was better maths-wise, Beesval compared to Blood Boil. Well, I mean, I take the Librarius Discipline jar miniatures, so I don't have a choice. It's the only other damaging power in the Librarius Discipline. They can do, like, I was just looking to be able to dish out more mortal wounds, I guess. That was my thought with that list. We then have 5 Vanguard veterans with Storm Shields and Lightning Claws, Sergeant with Infernal Pistol and the Relic Blade. We have 1 Attack Bike with a multi-melta. We have 1 Land Speeder with a multi-melta. We have a Vindicator with a Siege Shield. And we have the Whirlwind with the Castellan launches. 6 or better was the rule of thumb. I think 6 is the lowest I like on Sanguinary Guard. I think I feel 7 to 9 is better. Okay, I'm very skeptical about such low troops and CP count at the start, but according to your tactics video, it should be fine. I'm trying to think when I made that tactics video. It was probably a few months ago now. I think 5 CP is probably the lowest I would ever start with now. That gives you 10 over the course of the game. And how many troops you got? 2 troop squads. I mean, troops. Yeah, I'm absolutely fine starting with 2 troops. I've been playing games starting with 1 troop choice. OBSEC only matters if the units are alive, right? As a Blood Angels, if you have models on the objective, then you're probably going to be in close combat, and you're probably going to be able to kill the enemy on that objective. So I have no issue with just having 2 troop choices. I think I'd put the Incursors probably on a midfield objective. I'd have the Tactical Squad on a backfield objective. Maybe with the Whirlwind or something else on there just to shore it up. 5 CP is a little bit rough. Against some armies, you're maybe going to feel like you want some more. Maybe you could do that by... I was going to say, if you really need to get a CP back, I'd probably say you need to drop it's probably going to have to be Imperium Sword and run this guy with just Teeth of Terra. I mean, he's still going to get a great number of attacks, right? He's still going to have... he's a captain, so he's 4 attacks. He's the Death Company, so he's 5 attacks. He's the Teeth of Terra, so he's 8 attacks. And then he charges to 9 attacks, and Savage Echoes puts him on 10 attacks. So he's still 10 attacks, hitting on 2s, probably wounding enemy infantry on 2s or 3s. I think that's probably fine. But I mean, I definitely had a list starting with 4 CP, and straight away at the start of the game, I was Forlorn Fury in that guy, so I was probably starting with 3. So this is doable. But I guess play a couple of times and see how you feel. I'm planning to set the Death Company Captain and Death Company Squad at different spots, and Forlorn Fury, a unit that get the most of it, should be able to score Relentless Assault first turn 2. Hope to get the bonus to hit for the Whirlwind from the Land Speeder. Vindicator and Redemptor have variable amount of shots, but together should be statistically better. That was exactly what I was going to say. Terminators and Veterans are most likely starting reserve. Rest of the army will be grouped around the Librarian Terminator for a 5++, looking for feedback. Yes. So this is what we said earlier about if you run a single Redemptor, you feel like the Plasma Cannon can be very good or very bad. And I guess the same thing goes for the Vindicator, right? You run a single Vindicator, you could roll terribly for the number of shots from the turret each turn. However, if you run 3 Vindicators, then you can kill Mortari in a single turn. Which is a joke that we've talked about before. But yeah, a Vindicator can actually do a ridiculous amount of damage, right? Because it can get 6 shots, and each shot can do 6 damage. So you can get... You're basically varying from 1 damage all the way to 36 damage, with I guess 18 being an average, which is pretty good. It actually averages quite a bit higher than the Macroplasma. So, I guess... What, sorry, I'm just thinking for a second. So you've got the Chapter Master, the Death Company Captain, the Librarian Dreadnought, and the Librarian Terminator Armor. We're pushing it a little bit here with the point costs on characters, right? We're 560 points, right? So this is pushing it. I would say do not go higher than 560 points on the list. This is really pushing it. I guess we've got 2 Smash characters, and then the Chapter Master and Librarian very much as buff characters. All these Smash characters, the Death Company Captain can go, the Librarian Dreadnought can cast Quickening, or Wings, and jump forward. 2 2 troop choices to hold objectives, potential Forlorn Fury Small Death Company, Sanguinary Guard, Vanguard Vets and Terminators into Deep Strike, and then a multi-melta or 2 combined with the Whirlwind and the Vindicator. So yeah, it's a pretty cool... It's a different list. You know, we don't often see the Vindicator tank come out. But I mean, the Vindicator is toughness 8. With the shield, it does get a 2+ save. So it is more you know, for 140 points, it is fairly survivable. Honestly, consider swapping Dante in for the generic Chapter Master, gain a ton of CP back, says Mark F. Yeah, I mean, that would be one way to get what... here's the Warlord, though, right? So you'd save 1 CP on the cost of that Chapter Master, you'd save 5 points, and then Dante gives you 1 CP. Yeah, so you could use Dante. I mean, in this list, it feels like the Chapter Master is used as a force multiplier, right? So if that's the case, then Dante would essentially start you on 7 CP and give you 5 more points to put... I don't know. What could you do with 5 more points? You could change out this Relic Blade on this Vanguard Veteran Sergeant for a Thunderhammer. That might be add a little bit more value. Okay. Let me think about scoring a little bit then. We're looking at OBSEC, and we've got 2 troop choices. So we're looking at like an 8. And I think we're on 7.5 actually, because I think 8 included a Warlord trait that gave us some more OBSEC. Anti-Horde infantry, right? So against Horde-based lists, this isn't the strongest. We've got potentially the Whirlwind. You don't really want to be firing multi-meltas at Hordes. We have a few bolters out the Sanguinary Guard. We have the 1 Redemptor Dreadnought, and then potentially the Grav Cannon and the bolters out the tactical squad. So probably, I usually rate anti-Horde infantry based on your blast ability. Would it be 3 CP back? Would it not just be 2, Mark? Because would it not be... Because he's the Warlord, he's just... he's just paying 1 CP here, right? So it would just be Dante grants 1 CP. So I think you'd go from starting with 5 to starting with 7. And you also potentially get that Thunderhammer in. Anti-monster. I mean, we've got the Vindicator, which can do a lot of damage. We've got a couple of multi-meltas. We've got some Thunderhammers here. We've got some Infernal Pistols. We've got another Thunderhammer. We've the Onslaught Cannon. We've the Librarian that can do work against that. I guess we've got our Death Company Captain with the Teeth of Terra. The Relic you're not buying? Oh, right. The Relic you're not buying. 100%. Yes. Okay, yes. So Dante would actually give 3 back. Thank you. Like I said, it's getting pretty late here. My eyes are getting a little bit fuzzy. We don't normally do this show so late in the day. Okay, yep. So you would take his free relic and put it elsewhere, so you'd actually start on 8 CP. Yeah, I mean, that's the argument that Chris Chance made about his tournament list a few weeks ago, right? That he took Dante just to bump up his CP, so that's definitely an option as well. Okay. Anti-vehicle monster, I think we're going to go with a similar 8.5. And then mobility. I think it's probably like 7.5. You've got your tactical squad that aren't mobile, but they don't really need to be. You've got your Vindicator that isn't mobile to a certain extent, the Redemptor as well. But yeah, I mean, I think that's all fine. And then we've got the Fight Last. We've got 1 Deny from our Librarian. We've got a couple of units for actions, which feels like it's okay. 3 damage weapon wise, we were sitting with like, I guess the Vindicator, the 2 multi-meltas here, that gives us 3. The Infernal Pistol, 2 more hammers, that gives us 6. And another Infernal Pistol, 7. Redemptor, arguably 2, 9. Thunderhammer, 10, Librarian and Terminate Armor probably 11, Librarian Dreadnought like 12, 13, and then the Chapter Master with Infernal Pistol and the Thunderhammer. So potentially 15 3 damage weapons. So I guess specialization feels to be like fine. Like, it's a pretty well-rounded list. I don't think there's much that would need to be done there. So we're looking at a score of around 40 for this list. But 40 maybe... I mean, 40 maybe doesn't quite do it justice, I think. Like, I don't think there's any specific weakness in the list. I mean, the Vindicator, if there was enough points to get a second Redemptor, I feel like that would be slightly better than a Vindicator, but I don't think there is the points available. The Sanguinary Guard being only 5 feels to me small, but the fact that you've got 5 Assault Terminators to potentially back them up feels good as well. And then the HQ choices feel like a little bit on the costly side in terms of points, but I think it can work because it's not like the last list where it was like 3 smash characters, right? You have the Death Company Captain that can shred infantry, you have the Librarian Dreadnought that can shred armor and stuff. Do you know what? Based on the fact that you've got the Death Company Captain there that can absolutely shred infantry, I think I'm going to change that to an 8. So I think we're going to go with 40.5. So slightly better. Especially if you use the right Death Vision at the right time. And yeah, I mean, please play it, Michael, and then let us know how you get on. I had thought about Hector Rex Camille. I don't own Hector Rex yet, so and I have quite a few models I need to paint in the next month for this tournament coming up. One of which is a Primaris Tech Marine. So maybe after that we'll think about Hector Rex. So yeah, I think it's an okay list. I think the synergies are okay as well. You'd get more synergy if it was a second Redemptor over the Vindicator, because you've got the Chapter Master and you've got the Psychic Fortress there, which I think benefit the Redemptor more than they benefit the Vindicator, but I don't know where you could fill. The only way you'd be able to do that is if you dropped like the Assault Squad and made it like an 8-man Sanguinary Guard and used the extra points on the Redemptor, which would be an option, I guess. But if you're dead set on taking your Terminators, and I kind of like the Terminators set up like this, so that's probably trade the Whirlwind for a Judas CR, and then you have enough to trade for the Dread. I mean, I guess you could do that. Do you have enough to sit on the backfield objectives though if you lose the Whirlwind? Drop the Landspeeder and the Vindicator to get the points for a second Redemptor and one more Sanguinary Guard model. I think that's... Could you... The Landspeeder is 70, so if you did drop that... Yeah, you're right. You could probably take a Redemptor and another Sanguinary Guard for that. If you swap Dante in as well and got his 5 points, that'd probably be right. And then, yeah, Null Zone, just as a threat, is really, really good. You need to play Null Zone a few times, right? Because like there was one battle I actually left my Death Company Captain too close to my Psyker, and Andrew's character was able to kill me because of my own damn Null Zone. But that's definitely something you could consider changing. But yeah, I think it's a cool list, Michael. Hopefully we gave you some thoughts and suggestions. The other thing I might even change out is like maybe think about changing out the Tactical Squad just for something else, like another Incursor Squad. Incursors are very good for Blood Angels. Infiltrators are also just very good for anti-deep strike. But yeah, I mean, some people like the Firstborn Tactical Marines. The Grav Cannon gives you a little bit more firepower than Incursors or Infiltrators do. I just don't like the fact that Tactical Marines get one attack in combat, because our Doctrine is so good for combat, but when you only have like one attack, you don't really see the value of it. So That's my thought around Tactical Marines. Okay, all right, we're going to move on to Shane's list, and Shane will be the last list of the day. And yeah, I think 40.5 seems like a pretty good score, Michael. So hopefully, that gives you some thoughts. Okay, I am way more tired than I thought it would be. I guess I was driving all day, guys. So please keep me right in the chat if we miss some things on this final list. Okay, so Shane McCarran. Hey, Blood Angels Commander, I've been watching your channel from the beginning, but finally decided to post a list. I don't have any incursors or infiltrators, so this is why I'm using intercessors, but as for most of the other choices we can take in our armies, I already own a lot of things, and hopefully I can get some insight on how to improve the list. Okay, so this is a patrol detachment. 13 CP? Okay, so he must have Dante, I was going to say. You're most welcome, Michael. Thanks for submitting the list. Please let me know how you get on with the current list or any changes that you may make. Okay. Right, so we start off with the first patrol detachment with Dante, and he is the warlord. We then have 10 intercessors with auto bolt rifles, and another 9 intercessors with auto bolt rifles. Okay. And the sergeant in the first squad has a power sword. Okay. Pretty interesting to see so many auto bolt rifles. I mean, they are decent. They do rinse down horde units. Intercessors in general are actually okay with Blood Angels too, because intercessors get like 2 attacks per model. So on the charge with turn 3, these guys would actually still get 4 attacks per model, even though they're just hitting with their fists, or they're just default melee, I guess. It's actually okay. So these guys, the auto bolt rifle intercessors, feel like they're one of the best choice. Like if you're going to take intercessors, I feel like this is the best choice. I generally don't take intercessors myself. I prefer the Phobos troops because they're much better at scoring objectives now, which is really important in 9th edition. Quite often I tell people, like, just buy a box of the Phobos troops, which I think build either infiltrators and incursors and do a squad of both. I think that gives you a lot of versatility. If this was me, I'd probably be running one of, like, if you really want to run 10 assault intercessors to go center board and shoot around with the auto bolt rifles, I don't hate that. But I'd drop the second squad and put in some incursors probably, or infiltrators that can hold objectives with more stability or more safely, and then also score B points from secondaries. We then have, 2 Devastator squads here. One full of las cannons with a Cherub, and one full of multi-meltas. Missile launcher here at the end, and then a combi melta. And I feel like the combi melta is probably a wasted choice, because if you run Devastators, they all hit on 3s. However, the sergeant can make, if he doesn't fire his gun, he can make one of the Devastator hit on a 2, and then if you use the Harmonium Cherub on the one that's hitting on a 2, he can fire twice. So I feel like this combi melta in the second squad is kind of wasted, because you're probably, for the most part, Devastators are going to get targeted and killed early. So you want to use the sergeant to make one of the multi-meltas hit on a 2+, so you can use the Cherub on it, so you get 4 multi-melta shots hitting on 2s. And then you've paid points for a combi melta and you can never fire it. You'd be better off doing what you've got in the other squad, like giving them a chainsword or something like that. I think combi melta is 10 points here, so I think it's 10 wasted points. I'd probably just go for 4 multi-meltas here, lose a missile launcher. What is the difference in cost? Let me check. Devastators. Elites. Oh no, Devastators are heavy sport. Sorry, Devastator. Missile launcher is 15. Multi-melta is 20. Yeah, I'd probably just lose the combi melta, which is 10, and just take 4 multi-meltas. Moving on down then into the Vanguard detachment, we have a Librarian who is Veil of Time, Null Zone, and Psychic Fortress, and these are the 3 powers I'm actually going to be taking on my Librarian. I think these are 3 pretty good powers. All have uses. And this is a Chief Librarian with Psychic Mastery. Another thing I'm also taking my Librarian is Psychic Mastery to make those powers more reliable. Use Librarian very much as a force multiplier. We then have the Sanguinary Priest, who has Artificer Armor to give him the 2+ save and the 5+ invulnerable save, and he is a selfless healer. We talked a lot about this earlier in the stream about giving the Sanguinary Priest armor and how I don't think it's useful. He should never be in a position where he needs that armor. If he is, you've either played him badly or you're making a desperation play. So I think you just save. I think you just save the CP. I mean, I guess in this list he's still starting with 8, so it's possibly fine. You don't need to start with 9. But even if I was going to take armor on the priest, I'd probably take armor Indomitus because it gives him the same 2+, it gives him 1 more wound, and it gives you that 3++ phase that you can choose when to activate, which can be really, really powerful. With Armor Indomitus, I didn't realize this. Someone told me in the stream recently, normally, like when you smoke screen, you have to use, or transhuman, you have to use it before the enemy shoots. Whereas Armor Indomitus, you use it when you determine how many saves you need to take. So you can wait for the enemy to do all their attacks and all their wound rolls, and then when you're ready to take the saves, you can decide that's when you want to turn on Armor Indomitus. And that actually makes it super strong. So I would, if you want to take armor on the priest, I guess I would take Armor Indomitus over Artificer Armor, because I don't think Artificer Armor helps him a lot, but I also think that the priest should never be in a position where he needs the armor. We then have a Furioso Dreadnought, Melting on Smoke Launcher, Stormbolters, and 2 Blood Talons. And I mean, the Furioso Dreadnought is fine, I guess, but I think that if you're going to run a Dreadnought, like a Blood Angel specific Dreadnought, I think the Death Company one is better. I think it's only going to be 10 points more if you take it with 2 Heavy Flamers, which I think is the right choice. So it'd be like the Death Company Dreadnought, Smoke Launchers, 2 Heavy Flamers, and then the Blood Talons aren't as good as they used to be, right? Like, you're paying 10 points here for Blood Talons, whereas I think Furioso Fists are actually pretty much just as good, if not better in some situations, and they're 10 points cheaper. So I'd probably think about that long and hard before I picked that. Let me just bring up the Death Company thing 1 second, because I want to make sure that I got the information right. Oh, hey Bertie, thanks so much for becoming a member. I appreciate that. Nice to see a new member. I'm just back from a week's holiday, so thank you very much. That'll make my day. I mean, make me very happy that we've got a new member today. Okay, where's my camera? Here we go. Yeah, so the Death Company, like Blood Talons, you lose. They're 1 point of AP less. Yes, you can reroll all wound rolls, but your Furioso Fists are going to be Strength 12. So Strength 12 with +1 to wound. You're going to be wounding anything. Like, you will wound everything in the game on 2s here with the Fists. You'll probably wound everything in the game probably as well with the Talons on 2s. So yes, you could argue that the Talons are better, but you are getting 1 point more of AP on the Fists, and you are saving yourself 10 points. So I think my thought would be you'd be better off having a Death Company Dreadnought here with 2 Heavy Flamers, so it's hard to charge him. You can play Refusal to Die on him, so that, you know, it's also hard to kill him potentially, because he can 5+ Feel No Pain all incoming damage. Bear in mind he's got Duty Eternal as well. He also, the Death Company Dreadnought also is going to get 5 attacks. So 6 for being part of the Death Company, 7 for charging, 8 for Savage Echoes. So 8 attacks, Strength 12, -3. And I think that -3 might be quite important over the -2. I prefer it. Because if you think about it, if you're attacking like Marines, I guess, if you're on -2, they're saving on 5s. If you're on -3, they're saving on 6s. So I feel like the additional reroll of wounds, when you're already wounding on 2s, is going to be, it's not worth the 10 points over the additional point of AP, right? And I guess as we get into turn 3 and beyond, if you're fighting Marines, the Marines would move to no save against the Fists, where they would still have a save against the Blood Talons, excuse me. So yeah, there's a big argument to be made now. Is the Blood Talons worth 10 points? You might get 1 extra wound based on, like, you know, your 8 attacks hitting on 2s, so arguably let's say you hit 7, so your 7 attacks wounding on 2s, so arguably you probably wound 6, so 6 at -3 against potentially 7 at -2. It doesn't feel like the 10 points is worth it there. And you know what, it's really annoying because I just recently ripped I'd made my Death Company Dreadnought and I ripped off its arms to put flamers on both of them because I feel like the flamers are the right choice. I've talked with Steel Rain a little bit, I think, and also Reziel about putting double flamers on the Death Company Dreadnought. But I think that the Magna Grapple is worthless now, and I think that you kind of want smoke launchers, so I literally need to buy another Death Company Dreadnought. Add to my pile of shame. I agree on the Death Company Dreadnought, but I still rate the Talons to reroll wounds. It's more powerful than extra AB because it's higher up the chain. Yeah, I guess it's a tough one, right? I've struggled against Sisters of Battle a couple of times now with -2 AP, whereas don't Sisters of Battle have a banner as well where they can ignore -2 AP? Whereas, like, against -3, they've got nothing. So that's something to just think about, right? Food for thought, I guess. 10 points cheaper. Yes, you maybe wound 1 less, but you do get 1 more EP. If you desperately need 10 more points, then I guess Furioso Fists are valid over Blood Talons. That's probably all that needs to be said there, right? It's a tough one. I really appreciate it anyway, Werty. Thank you for that. And I'm glad you've enjoyed the videos. More to come, I guess. Sanguinary Guard, and it's an 8-man squad with swords, axes, and 1 infernal pistol. We have talked a little bit recently how more axes are better than swords, but that's fine. And then Vanguard Veteran Squad, a bunch of lightning claws, couple with plasma pistols and storm shields, and a sergeant with infernal pistol and relic blade. Strange choice, plasma pistols on Vanguard Veterans. What am I missing? Someone tell me. I've never seen someone running plasma pistols like this on Vanguard Veterans. I mean, infernal pistols, yeah. Plasma pistols? I also... something to consider here is, right? And it's a small thing, but it is worth mentioning, I guess, in that, like, a Vanguard Veteran gets, like, 2 attacks, right? So if he's got Lightning Claw, he gets 3 attacks. If he's charging, he gets 4 attacks. If he's Savage Echoes up, he gets 5 attacks, right? So if you think of, like, a Vanguard Veteran with his 5 attacks, by giving him the second Lightning Claw, you put him up to 6 attacks, right? So it's like a 20% increase in damage output, yeah? Because, like, you go from 5 attacks, you go from 5 attacks to 6 attacks, so 6 divided by 5, right? It's a 20% increase by having the second Lightning Claw. What you lose, however, by not having that Storm Shield is, like, quite a lot more than 20% in terms of survivability. Because if you think about it, your base save goes from a 3 to a 2. So you gain like 18% survivability straight away because your base save has gone up by 1 point. But then it's hard to do the math for the 4+ invulnerable save. But the 4+ invulnerable save, if you're getting hit by really high AP weapons, if you get hit by, like, let's say AP2, then your 4+ invulnerable save is like another 20% survivability as well. So my thought with lightning claws and stuff on Vanguard veterans is I think it's really valuable to have storm shields on a lot of the models. I actually built a bunch that just have chain swords and storm shields, so that they're cheap to take the deaths on, but you can still take the deaths on the 4+ invulnerable save, right? And yeah, I guess Jar Miniature points out that the two guys with storm shields potentially can kill themselves with their plasma pistols. I don't know really. Don't really know the logic behind it. I would take infernal pistols over them any day, and I would take more storm shields on some of the lightning claw guys, because I don't think a 20% increase in damage is worth what you lose in terms of them surviving. I think Vanguard veterans are supposed to be like, they're supposed to be the survivable jump unit, right? We know Sanguinary Guard don't survive because they've got no invulnerable save. We know Death Company don't really survive. So Vanguard veterans are supposed to be the jump unit that can get around and survive and make those critical saves on their storm shields. And I guess this squad just doesn't have them. And then we finish up the list with a Venerable Dreadnought with the Twin Las Cannon and a combat weapon and a Stormbolter. Okay. Even with a +1 to hit sellers, natural rolls of 1 will still result in a dead model. They changed that in 9th edition. Used to be able to bypass it like in previous editions, but now if you roll a 1, even if you have +1 to hit, it still counts as your weapon explodes and you die. Or you take a mortal wound, depending on like if it's on a dreadnought or something, right? Okay, so 2 dreadnoughts, and they're the older type. One with twin las cannons, Furioso, much more melee based. 8-man Sanguinary Guard, decent sized Vanguard veteran squad. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 Vanguard veterans. Couple of questions around the loadouts, but like maybe not the biggest deal. Sanguinary Priest, the Librarian, 2 Devastator squads, and then a massive Infiltrators and Dante. Okay. This is a very different list than what we're normally used to looking at, isn't it? Right? Like, we don't see many people running 2 Devastator squads, especially without drop pods, right? And we definitely don't see too many people taking like 19 Assault Intercessors to push the middle. Let's do a little bit of scoring then. We do have 2 troop choices, and they are both large squads, so I think we'll go with an 8, right? Because we normally go 7.5 if we had 2 like 5-mans. So we get 2 10-mans here. Anti-Horde is probably pretty good in this list, because if we had to, we got a lot of firepower coming out from the Devastators, which could just wreck a Horde-based army if they wanted to. We then have... I'd like to have seen some heavy flamers on the Furioso, but that's fine. We then have potentially, what is that, like 100 odd shots? 19 Assault Intercessors, each shooting 3 times. So like we get like 60 auto bolt rifle shots, and we can pay a couple of CP and make one squad shoot again for like another 30 odd shots, I guess. So potentially you could have like 100, close to 100 strength force shots coming out here. Provided you've got like a captain there, or a Dante in this case, to do some rerolls. I guess horde-based lists, this list's probably pretty good. I think the Assault Intercessors provide some good value there. Damage 3 weapons is probably pretty good as well. Twin las cannon here, so that's a couple. Infernal pistol, that's 3. Another infernal pistol, 4. Melt gun, 5. Librarian, 6. I guess another 4, 14, and then Dante's Infernal Pistol, so like 15 3 damage weapons. And yeah, I mean, there's a decent amount of anti-armor punch, or anti-vehicle punch, I think. The fact that you've got like 6 multi-melta shots here, I mean, that's the equivalent of like a squad of attack bikes, and then you've got the missile launcher, and you've got the ability to shoot hit on 2s and do some rerolls. there's a 2 CP strat that if the devs dropped in a drop pod, they could count as stationary. I think they changed that, Adam, in that if you embark from a transport or you arrive from strategic reserve, you always have count as moving. You could move them and pay 2 CP and they would count as stationary, but you can never bring them in from reserve and have count as stationary. I think that was to stop like what Andrew was doing, where he was like reserving shitloads of multi-melta guys and just bringing them in and just hosing everything, and nobody had a chance. So I think if you arrive from Deep Strike, you'd always take the -1 to hit from carrying a heavy weapon, basically. Yeah. Okay, mobility-wise, I mean, a Furioso Dreadnought isn't mobile, neither is the Venerable. Neither are any of the Devastators, and arguably neither are the Intercessors. I mean, they could advance, but I think mobility here is probably like a 6. And then specialization, we're looking at like, we've got no fight last, we've got 1 deny, we have a decent amount of 3 damage weapons. Actions is going to be a problem here unless we combat squad these intercessors, but I feel like that's not the point of this list. You don't really want to be doing actions with the Sanguinary Guard or the Vanguard Veterans, right? You want to be doing it with your troop choices, and your troops aren't really set out to do this. So I guess like specialization for me is probably like, I'd say it's like a... It's like a 7.5. I think it's just missing a little bit too much. But, you know, this list to me, yeah, that's fine, Adam, no problem. It feels like 2 Devastator squads, a Dreadnought with twin las cannons, and then the Furioso Dreadnought, which I think everybody agrees would be better as the Death Company Dreadnought, with or without Blood Talons or the Fists. It feels, I don't know, I was going to say it feels a little bit like last edition, but it doesn't, because last edition I was running full jump pack. It feels like early 9th edition lists, where like multi-meltas got buffed and people went like, holy crap, multi-meltas are good now, we should be running multi-meltas. I don't know what the logic with the las cannons is. Like, las cannons to me just feel like so swingy, because every time I roll a damage roll for a las cannon, it feels like I get a damn 1. So I don't know what the... We've talked a lot about how we don't really rate las cannons that high on the channel because they're so swingy. So yeah, I think that's a bit of a question mark as well. Okay, yeah. So I think 39 comes in. A reasonable score, but I think there could probably be some improvements to be made. The troop choices are a little bit difficult because of actions that you'll need to do. The Furioso Dreadnought, I think I'm okay with the Venerable Dreadnought. I think this list maybe struggles a little bit for synergy, right? Like it feels like you just want to shoot these Devastators, and what, Dante is going to be hanging around in the back with them. But I feel like, yeah, that's maybe my problem, is that like the Sanguinary Guard are so much stronger when they're near the Warlord, right? And in this list, Dante's our Warlord. So who's making the Devastators, rerolls or something like that so that they're effective? Nobody, I guess. And I guess I feel like Devastators without rerolls are going to do average at best. Drop a few intercessors and bring some company veterans. Could he do that? Has he got 1, 2, 3? Yeah, he's got some elite spaces. That'd probably be a good idea, Jar Miniatures. Yeah, I would do that. I'd probably maybe make that second squad of intercessors just like a 5. Or does that give you back like... Yeah, Yeah, they're 20 points per model, so that would give you back like 60 points. You could easily run like a 3-man company veteran unit or 2 with some decent war gear. I guess you're right. Thanks, Highland. Yeah, the Venerable Dreadnought could be running Wisdom of the Ancient. Sitting in the backfield to buff the Devastators. I don't know. Devastators to me don't feel like they're Blood Angels, right? They're just not mobile. And I think I always say that I think our biggest strength is our mobility. So if you basically have to find a building to park the Devastators on so that they can get good line of sights and firing arcs and stuff, and it's very difficult. And you know, the enemy will know that, especially multi-meltas. They're only 24 inches. I feel like if they're on a building to try and get good line of fire, then the enemies just won't move into line of fire. This is probably why Eradicators and attack bikes get picked all the time. And if you look at the points cost here of this Devastator squad being at 180 points, that is the cost of either 3 attack bikes with multi-meltas or 3 plasma inceptors. And I feel like both those units are just better for Blood Angels than Devastators. Devastators feels like really retro to me. Yeah, I used to run Devastators a lot. Between 2nd and 4th edition, yes. So yeah, I think improvements could probably be made in a few different departments. Probably maybe with some of those lightning claws, maybe some things with the dreadnoughts, and yeah, maybe just making one of these heavy support units more mobile would be a lot better. You know, 180 points is basically the cost of a Redemptor as well. You know, if you talk about the rule of 2 for dreadnoughts, you could have the Venerable Dreadnought and a Redemptor together with this squad of las cannons, and like the las cannons could swing really good for you, but they could also swing badly, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so I think we're gonna wrap up for the night, guys. Sorry we're so late this week. We should be back to our normal time next week. And I'll post up the lists for the game against AdMech tomorrow as well. I'll probably throw that into the members room in Discord, and some of you guys can highlight a few things. I haven't played AdMech yet in 9th edition. It's one of the few armies that I haven't managed to get a game against. So if we do betting tomorrow night, it's probably going to be safer to bet on AdMech, because I literally haven't played them. And they've just got their new codex out, so I'm gonna try and study up a little bit before the game on what we need to know. But I will. The HQ video was awesome. Thank you, Mark, and thanks everybody for hanging out tonight. I hope you enjoyed the stream. But yeah, hopefully catch some of you guys tomorrow, and yeah, I guess more videos to come this week as well. So yeah. Thanks so much for watching. Should be back to the normal time next week. Oh, we should quickly say whose lists are up for next week as well. No, wrong folder. Next week we're looking at Chris Catherwood, Maverick. I think Mark submitted a 1K list, so we'll look at that as well. Blanco Pie and Lucky Jim. And if you do want to submit a list, and I didn't say earlier, head over to the community tab of the Blood Angels Commander channel and just post your list in the latest community post, just as like text, and I'll find it and I'll add it. And make sure you follow the new AdMech FAQ as it nerfed a few tricks. Yeah, I'm sure we're following the new AdMech FAQ because Gav, the guy I'm playing, is actually a very, very experienced player. He actually plays for the Scotland team, I believe. So it'll be a tough game regardless. But I mean, I guess if he's gonna bring the AdMech, it's gonna be a very, very tough game. So it's good because I've got that tournament coming up in a month. Yeah, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 5 weeks until I've got this tournament. It's on the 11th. So it should be good experience for me, and I guess you guys can see AdMech as well. You're welcome, Adam. I wanted to get back earlier and get the show going, so I'm just glad we managed to do it today. And yeah, alright, I'm going to bail. I will catch you guys hopefully tomorrow, and I've got another video coming out on Friday. And I think I've arranged with Mark and Tony to film the Forge World tier list this week. So it probably won't be out this week, but probably next week we'll get the next tier list video out as well. So Have a good evening, guys. Thanks so much for watching. By the blood are we made strong. Peace.